You think you know what it means to be dead? To have your name on a memorial, your face on a news crawl, your mother sobbing into a pillow that still smells like you? I did. For 847 days, I was the most famous corpse in the world. My body was fake. My funeral was real. And the networks that mourned me? I was inside every single one of them. This isn't a story about a soldier who died for their country. This is a story about a soldier who had to kill their own life over and over for 3 years to save everyone else's. My name is Sergeant Elena Vox Marchetti, and if you're hearing my voice, it means my last death finally stuck. The first time I died, it was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were when my mom called. 1600 hours Zulu, like clockwork. She'd ask if I'd eaten. I'd lie and say yes. She'd ask if I was warm. I'd lie again. The last call came while I was sitting in the back of a C-130 over the Black Sea, my boots laced over a fresh pair of socks she'd mailed me. Wool, hand-knitted, the color of rust. I rubbed my thumb over the cuff and thought if I answer this, I won't hang up. I didn't answer. For hours later, a missile the size of a refrigerator turned my convoy into a crater. That was the official story. The one the Pentagon leaked to Reuters. The one that showed up on every screen from Moscow to Caracas. Sergeant Elena Marchetti, 28, confirmed Kia, remains unrecoverable. The truth was simpler and uglier. I was in a drainage ditch 200 meters away, hugging a flat concrete pipe, watching through night vision as my abandoned Humvee became a firework. The real target was a hard drive no bigger than my palm, stuffed in my vest pocket. It contained the authentication keys for 47 deep cover assets across 3 continents. I wasn't supposed to be the courier. I was supposed to be the dead drop. But plans change when your exfiltration helicopter takes a stinger to the tail rotor. Vox, you're crying. That was Faraday. Staff Sergeant Marcus Faraday-chun. He was my second in command, my conscience, and the only person I knew who could field strip an AK-47 while arguing moral philosophy. He was also, at that precise moment, bleeding from a gash above his eye, crouched in the ditch beside me, his voice as calm as if he were ordering coffee. I'm not crying, I said. My cheeks were wet. The air smelled of diesel and burnt rubber. It's the smoke. It's 40 degrees, and the wind's from the north. He didn't look at me. He was scanning the ridgeline through a broken optic. You're allowed. She just watched your funeral on CNN. I hadn't thought about that. My mother, sitting in her floral print armchair in New Jersey, a mug of tea growing cold in her hands, watching a Sheeran tell her that her only daughter was a pile of charred bone. I felt a sob crawl up my throat like a snake. I swallowed it. Status, I said. My voice cracked on the second syllable. From my left, 3 friendlies, 1 unknown. That was Private First Class Dante Rook Rojas, 22 years old, from El Paso. He joined the Army to pay for his sister's chemo. She was in remission now. He'd never told her he'd enlisted. He was missing a boot. He didn't seem to notice. Vox, your left shoulder's smoking. I looked down. My sleeve was on fire. A small, cheerful blue flame. I patted it out with my bare hand. The skin blistered instantly. I didn't feel it. We need to move, said the 4th member of my team. Staff Sergeant Jenna Ghost Okonkwo. She was 6 feet of silent fury, a Nigerian-American sniper with a kill count she never spoke of and a habit of finishing other people's sentences. She was already on her feet, her rifle up. They'll send a cleanup squad. 20 minutes. Maybe 15. 15 minutes until we're a secondary crater, Faraday agreed. He looked at me. Boss. The drive. I pulled a hard drive from my vest. It was warm, not from the fire, from my own body heat. Inside it were names, addresses, bank accounts, dead drop locations, the entire architecture of Operation Silent Bell, a network of human intelligence assets we'd spent 3 years building inside hostile governments. If that drive fell into enemy hands, 47 people would be dead by sunrise. Their families, too. Probably their pets. These people didn't leave loose ends. Protocol says destroy it, Rook said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. He was young. He was brave. He was also right. Protocol did say destroy it. A thermite grenade to the drive, reduce it to slag, and all those assets go dark. Not dead, just blind. Cut off. Alone. The kind of alone that gets you recruited or shot, depending on the day. Destroy it, and we lose 3 years of work, Ghost said. And those assets lose their lifeline. Keep it, and We lose them anyway when we're captured, Faraday said. Because we will be captured. We're out of air support, out of exfil, and we're 40 clicks from the nearest friendly border. On foot, in hostile territory, in the dark, with one boot between 4 people. He wasn't being pessimistic. He was being honest. That was his job. Faraday was the one who told me when my plans were stupid. I love him for it. I also hated him for it, right then, because he was right. I looked at the hard drive. Then I looked at my team. Rook, who'd never wanted to be a soldier, only a brother. Ghost, who joined the army at 17 to escape a father who hit her and never looked back. Faraday, who turned down a Rhodes Scholarship to enlist after September 11th because, and I quote, someone has to think while everyone else is shooting. And me, Elena Marchetti, the daughter of a hairdresser and a long-haul truck driver. The girl who learned 6 languages because she was bored in high school. The soldier who'd been told 2 years ago that she had a gift for lying and been promoted into a black program she wasn't supposed to know existed. I made a decision. It was the worst decision of my life. It was also the only one. We don't destroy it, I said, and we don't run. Faraday's expression didn't change. That was how I knew he was terrified. Then what do? We make them think I'm dead. Silence. The crackle of the burning Humvee. Somewhere to the east, a dog barked. You are dead, Ghost said slowly. According to every news agency with a wire subscription. The Pentagon issued a statement. The State Department sent condolences. Exactly, I said. They already did the hard part for us. They killed me. Now we make it stick. I pulled out my knife. A simple Benchmade, black blade, no serrations. I cut a strip of fabric from my burning sleeve. Then I cut another. Then I handed the knife to Faraday. Cut your face, I said. He stared at me. I am sorry. Your eyebrow. The gash. Make it bigger. Make it look like you crawled out of a fire. Because you did. He understood then. I saw it happen. The slow dawn of comprehension, followed by the sickening drop of realization. You want us to leave you. I want you to survive, I said. You 3 take the drive. You go north. You cross the border. You hand it to the station chief in Bucharest. And you tell them that Sergeant Marchetti died in the strike. You tell them you pulled her dog tags from the wreckage. I unclasped my chain from around my neck. The tags were warm. I pressed them into Faraday's palm. You tell them she burned. No remains. No ID. Just the tags. That's a lie, Rook said. His voice was small. Vox, that's a lie. It's an operational cover, I said. And it's the only way the drive gets out. If I'm with you, I'm a liability. I'm the primary target. They'll chase you harder, search longer, burn more resources. But if I'm dead, I spread my hands. The hunt stops. They'll still look for the drive, but they won't look for me. And without me as a target, you 3 become ghosts. Just travelers. Just survivors. 3 people who got lucky. And what do you become? Ghost asked. I thought about it. The word felt strange in my mouth. A corpse. We didn't have time for a longer conversation. The cleanup squad was coming. I could hear the helicopters now, the distant thrum of rotors beating the air like heartbeats. Faraday made the call. Not because he agreed with me. Because he trusted me. That was the difference between being a sergeant and being a leader. Sergeants give orders. Leaders earn trust. And Faraday trusted me to know when to be dead. He hugged me. It was brief, fierce, and smelled of cordite and sweat. You better come back, he whispered. I'm not coming back, I said. That's the point. Rook shook my hand. His grip was too tight. He was trying not to cry. Ghost just looked at me. Then she nodded once, sharp and final, and turned and vanished into the dark. Rook followed. Faraday lingered 1 second longer, his silhouette black against the burning wreckage. 47 people, he said. You're doing this for them. I'm doing this for us, I said. Now go. He went. I waited until the sound of their footsteps faded. Then I pulled the second object from my vest pocket. Not the hard drive. Something else. A small plastic device, no bigger than a credit card, with a single blinking green light. A network bridge. A backdoor into every major global media platform, social network, and news aggregation service, planted over the last 18 months by a dozen different assets I'd never meet in person. Operation Silent Bell wasn't just about human intelligence. It was about narrative intelligence. The ability to inject a story into the global bloodstream and watch it spread. And the first story I'd ever inject, the only story that mattered, was my own death. I sat down in the ditch. I pulled out my phone. The screen was cracked, but it worked. I opened a secure terminal app. I typed a single command. Activate. Shroud. The bridge blinked twice, then went dark. Across 23 servers in 11 countries, a script began to run. It would take 2 hours to propagate. By the time the sun rose over the Black Sea, every major news outlet on Earth would have received a verified, time-stamped, cryptographically signed update. Sergeant Elena Marchetti, Kia. Confirmatory imagery from the crash site. Witness statements from surviving members of her unit. Even a doctored satellite photo showing a body bag being loaded onto a transport. The body bag would be empty. The witnesses were me, writing 3 different accounts in 3 different styles. The satellite photo was a composite of 7 different images, stitched together by a freelancer in Prague who thought he was doing a John le Carré book cover. I leaned my head back against the concrete pipe. The helicopters were closer now. Searchlights swept the valley like blind fingers. I closed my eyes. Mom, I thought, I am sorry. I'll call you when this is over. But I knew, even then, that over was a country I might never reach. Because dying once was easy. Dying twice was harder. And I'd have to die a lot more than twice before this mission was done. The first death was a Tuesday. The second death was a Thursday. And it hurt so much more. 47 days after my first death, I woke up in a shipping container in Gdansk, Poland, with a tube down my throat and a woman in a hazmat suit reading a romance novel by the light of a headlamp. "You're alive," she said, not looking up from her book. Pity. I was almost to the good part. I tried to speak. The tube made it impossible. I gestured weakly at my throat. The woman, late 30s, Slavic features, a faded tattoo of swallow on her left wrist, sighed, set down the novel, and removed the tube with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. I gagged. She handed me a cup of water. It was warm and tasted like metal. "Where?" I coughed. "Where am I?" "A shipping container in Gdansk, Poland," she repeated. "I just said that. Are you brain damaged? Or just rude?" "Both," I said. "Who are you?" She closed the novel. The cover showed a shirtless man with a wolf and a title like Midnight Howl of the Heart. "Dr. Kasia Novak. You can call me Kasia. I'm your new handler. Or rather, I'm the handler for the corpse of Sergeant Elena Marchetti. Congratulations. You've been dead for 6 weeks. Your mother held a memorial service. There were bagpipes. I set down the water. My hand was shaking. Not from fear. From withdrawal. I've been on a heavy cocktail of sedatives and nerve repair drugs. I could feel my synapses misfiring like a car engine trying to turn over in winter. "The drive," I said. "Faraday. My team. Did they make it?" Kasia picked up her book. "They made it. The drive is safe. Your team is in protective custody in a CIA black site in Romania, undergoing psychological evaluation, which is spy speak for we're making sure they weren't compromised before we let them go home." She turned a page. "Faraday sends his regards. Also, he said to tell you that your plan was the stupidest, brilliant thing he'd ever seen, and that he's going to kill you when he sees you." I laughed. It came out as a wet rasp. "He's not going to see me. I'm dead." "Exactly." Kasia finally looked at me. Her eyes were the color of sea glass. Cold, calculating, but not unkind. "Which brings us to the mission. You didn't think we faked your death just to get a hard drive across the border, did you?" I had. I genuinely thought that was the entire plan. Save the assets. Get the intel home. Then disappear into a quiet desk job in Virginia where the biggest risk was a paper cut. But the look on Kasia's face told me I was very, very wrong. "Operation Silent Bell was phase 1, she said. Phase 2 is something else. Something we couldn't tell you about until you were officially dead. Because if you'd known, you wouldn't have agreed. Try me." She set down the book. For the first time, she looked uncomfortable. "There's a network. Not our network. A different one. Private. Encrypted. It spans social media, news comment sections, gaming forums, even dating apps. They call themselves the Labyrinth. They're not a government. They're not a terrorist group. They're an idea. And ideas are a lot harder to kill than people." "What kind of idea?" "That truth is a negotiation. That facts are just opinions with better funding." Kasia pulled a tablet from a sealed bag and handed it to me. The screen showed a news article. Then another. Then another. They were all the same story, but with different details. A bombing in Berlin. In one article, the perpetrator was a far-right extremist. In another, an Islamist sleeper agent. In a third, a mentally ill loner with no political affiliation. 3 versions, all backed by verified sources, all published within hours of each other. They're stress-testing reality, I said slowly, seeing how far they can push before the contradictions break something. Bingo, Kasia pointed at the tablet. The labyrinth has been doing this for 2 years. Small scale, local conflicts, regional tensions. But they're scaling up. We've intercepted chatter. They're planning something big, something global. And the only way to stop them is to do what they do, but better. You want me to lie. We want you to die. She said it flatly. Again and again, as many times as it takes. You're going to become a ghost in their machine. You'll create false identities, dead identities. Then you'll use those corpses to infiltrate their networks from the inside. You'll post as them, comment as them, build relationships as them. You'll die in a car crash in one country, then show up as a grieving widow in another. You'll be a Ukrainian refugee, a Syrian dissident, a Hong Kong activist. You'll be everyone and no one. And every time one of your personas dies, the labyrinth will think they've eliminated a threat. But you'll just move to the next body, the next face, the next lie. Histoire de hair. The shipping container smelled of diesel and old sweat. Somewhere outside, a ship's horn bellowed. How long? I asked. As long as it takes. And my team? Faraday's in. He's running comms and logistics from a safe house in Athens. Rook is out. He couldn't handle the psychological toll. He's been reassigned to a training billet in Kansas. He thinks you're really dead. We told him the body bag was real. For a moment, something hot and sharp lodged in my chest. Rook, the kid who'd joined the army for his sister. The one who'd held my hand in the ditch. He thought I was Ash. He was probably drinking himself to sleep every night, haunted by the memory of walking away. And Ghost? I asked. Kasia's expression flickered. Ghost is a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that doesn't believe you're dead. She pulled up a file on the tablet. Surveillance photo. Ghost in a cafe in Istanbul, typing on a laptop. Ghost at a train station in Budapest, wearing a different coat. Ghost standing outside a mosque in Sarajevo, her face half turned to the camera, as if she knew she was being watched. She's been hunting for you. Off the books. Using her own contacts. Faraday's tried to stop her, but she won't listen. She says she knows you're alive. She says she can feel it. I closed my eyes. Ghost. And I had been through hell together. 2 women in a man's world, watching each other's backs. She'd saved my life in a firefight outside Aleppo. I'd held her hand while she pulled a piece of shrapnel from her own thigh because we couldn't risk a medevac. She was the only person on earth who could read my tells. And right now, she was reading the one tell I couldn't fake, my absence. I need to talk to her, I said. No, Kasia's voice hardened. You're dead. You stay dead. If she finds you, the whole operation collapses. The labyrinth has infiltrators everywhere. One slip, one photo, one text message, and they'll connect the dots. Then, you're not a corpse anymore. You're a target. Then what do? You let her grieve. Kasia stood up. The shipping container swayed slightly. And you start your second death. She handed me a folder. Inside were the documents for a new identity. A woman named Irina Volkov, 34, a Ukrainian journalist killed in a Russian missile strike on maternity hospital in Mariupol. The death had been real. The journalist had been real. But the body had never been recovered. And the labyrinth had already used Irina's image in one of their disinformation campaigns, claiming the hospital strike was a false flag operation. My mission, resurrect Irina. Not as a living person, but as a ghost. I would post from her abandoned social media accounts. I would comment on news articles about her death, pretending to be a grieving colleague. I would infiltrate the labyrinth's private forums as someone who'd been radicalized by the injustice of her murder. And when the time came, I would die again. A car bomb, a drone strike, a suicide that wasn't. Each death would close one door and open another. I looked at Irina's photo. She had kind eyes, a smile that seemed to say, I know something you don't. She'd been 34. She'd had a cat named Borscht and a fiancé named Dimitro, who was now fighting in the trenches outside Bakhmut. He didn't know she was dead. He thought she'd fled to Poland. He sent her messages every day, asking if she was safe. I would have to read those messages. I would have to not respond. This is monstrous, I said. Yes, Kasia agreed. It is, but it's also necessary. The Labyrinth is 3 months away from launching a global disinformation campaign that will trigger a cascade of ethnic cleansings, civil wars, and nuclear escalations. Not because they want any of those things, but because chaos is profitable. And the only way to fight a network is from inside the network. From the dead. I picked up Irina's passport. The photo was mine, but the face was different. A different hairstyle, different glasses, a scar on the chin that Kasia surgeons had given me while I was sedated. One condition, I said. Name it. When this is over, if I survive, I get to tell my mother the truth. In person. No more lies. Kasia considered this. Then, she nodded. Fair enough. But you should know. Your mother held your memorial service at the VFW Hall in your hometown. 200 people came. Your third-grade teacher cried. Your ex-boyfriend showed up drunk and had to be escorted out. And at the end, your mother stood up and said, Elena always said she'd die for her country. I just never thought she'd mean it. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Dead people don't cry. But I felt it. The grief pressing against my ribs like a second heart. I closed Irina's folder. I opened my phone. And I began to type the first post of my second life. My name was Irina Volkov. I was a journalist. I told the truth. And for that, they killed me. It was a lie. The truth was that I, Elena Marchetti, was still breathing. But lies, well, lies were the only currency I had left. I died 37 times in 847 days. The deaths blurred together after a while. A drowning in Thailand. A shooting in Brazil. A heart attack in a hotel room in Dubai that was actually a syringe of potassium chloride, administered by my own hand because the labyrinth had gotten too close and I needed to burn the identity before they traced it back to me. Each death was a small apocalypse. Each resurrection was a small miracle. By the end of the second year, I had forgotten what it felt like to be real. I had 19 passports, 47 bank accounts, and a collection of funeral notices I kept in a shoebox under my bed in a safe house in Malta. Sometimes I read them aloud, just to hear my own voice. In loving memory. Gone but not forgotten. Forever in our hearts. I had written most of them myself. Faraday was my only anchor. We talked every night, encrypted voice calls that lasted exactly 7 minutes. He was the one who reminded me of my own name. He was the one who told me jokes so bad I laughed despite myself. He was the one who said, on the 300th day, Elena, you're not a soldier anymore. You're something else. I don't know what, but you're not nothing. I wanted to believe him. But the truth was colder. I was a wound that wouldn't close. A story that refused to end. Then, on day 848, Ghost found me. I was in a cafe in Ljubljana, wearing the face of a Slovenian environmental activist named Petra Kovac. I was supposed to be dead. Petrol station explosion, faulty wiring, very sad, but the labyrinth had been slow to update their records, and I had one last piece of intel to extract before I burned the identity. I was sipping an espresso and reading a news article about myself when a woman sat down across from me. She was wearing a gray coat, a knit cap, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You're getting sloppy, Ghost said. My hand didn't shake. My face didn't change. But inside, something cracked. A dam. A wall. A promise I'd made to myself that I'd never break. I don't know who you think I am, I said, in perfect Slovenian, but my name is Petra, your left hand, Ghost said. You twist your wedding ring when you're nervous. Except you're not wearing a wedding ring. You're twisting your index finger. The same habit. The same tell. I watched you do it for 3 years, Elena. I stopped twisting. I set down my espresso. The cafe was busy, full of students and old men and the smell of fresh bread. No one was looking at us. No one ever looked at two women talking. You're supposed to think I'm dead, I said quietly. I'm supposed to do a lot of things. Ghost leaned forward. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She hadn't been sleeping. I spent 2 years hunting for you. 2 years of dead ends and false leads and people who looked at me like I was crazy. I lost my clearance. I lost my pension. I lost my mind, Elena. And all because you couldn't trust me. It wasn't about trust. Then, what was it about? I wanted to say protection. I wanted to say the mission. I wanted to say 47 names on a hard drive and a network that eats truth for breakfast. But those were excuses. The real answer was simpler and uglier. I was afraid, I said. If you knew I was alive, you want to help. And if you helped, you'd be in danger. And if you were in danger, I'd have to watch you die. And I couldn't. I couldn't watch another person I love turn into ash. Ghost was silent for a long moment. Then, she reached across the table and took my hand. Her palm was rough, calloused. A sniper's hand. I'm already dead, she said. The day you died the first time, I died too. Not physically, but something inside me stopped. I've been a ghost ever since. A real one. Not the call sign. The thing. She squeezed my fingers. So, if you're gonna keep dying, you're gonna take me with you. Because I'd rather be dead with you than alive without you. I didn't cry. Dead people don't cry. But I came close. I told her everything. The labyrinth. The 37 deaths. The shoebox full of funeral notices. The encrypted calls with Faraday. The way I'd started to forget what my mother's voice sounded like. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she nodded once, sharp and final, the way she used to nod before a mission. What's the end game? She asked. There's a server, I said. The labyrinth's central coordination node. It's not on any map. It's not connected to any public network. It's air-gapped, physically isolated, buried somewhere in the Carpathian Mountains. We've been trying to locate it for 18 months. And yesterday I finally found it. I pulled out my phone, showed her the satellite imagery. A small agricultural facility surrounded by forest. A single road. No power lines. It ran on geothermal. No internet connection except a dedicated fiber line that went straight into the mountain. That's where they plan the big ones, I said. That's where they stress test reality. And that's where we burn it all down. We, Ghost repeated. Not I. I agreed. If you're in. She smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen from her in years. I was in the moment. I sat down. We took the facility on a Tuesday. Because Tuesdays were when my mother used to call. And I had a superstition now about endings and beginnings. Faraday ran remote support from a van 3 clicks out, disguised as a telecom repair vehicle. He was the one who cut the fiber line at exactly 2:17 local time, triggering the facility's backup communications, a satellite uplink that routed through a commercial provider we'd compromised 6 months earlier. Ghost, and I used the 5-second window to slip through the perimeter fence, past 3 motion sensors, and into the geothermal vent shaft that served as the facility's Achilles heel. The shaft was narrow, full of steam that scalded my arms and turned my night vision into a blur of green ghosts. I crawled on my belly, elbows, and knees, the rough concrete grinding through my trousers. Ghost was behind me. She was humming. Something tuneless. A habit she'd picked up in sniper school. She'd once told me to keep her breathing steady. 20 meters, I whispered into my comms. 12 hostiles, Faraday replied. His voice was calm, clinical. 3 in the server room. The rest distributed. I've looped the security cameras. You have 6 minutes before the loop breaks. 6 minutes. I checked my watch. Plenty of time. Elena, Ghost said from behind me. When we get in there. The server. It's not just data, is it? No, I said. It's the labyrinth's brain. Every psyop, every disinformation campaign, every false flag. It all passes through that server. Take it out, and the network doesn't just lose coordination. It loses memory. It forgets who it is. And the people running it, I thought about the men and women who'd built this machine. The engineers, the propagandists, the true believers, and mercenaries alike. Some of them were monsters. Some were just cowards. Most were both. They'll survive, I said, but they'll be blind. And blind monsters are easier to hunt. We emerged from the vent shaft into a maintenance corridor. The air was cooler here, recycled, sterile. Ghost of point. She moved like water, silent and inevitable. I followed. We passed 2 guards. Ghost disabled the first with a chokehold that took 3 seconds. I disabled the second with a syringe of the same potassium chloride I'd used on myself a lifetime ago. The server room was at the end of the corridor. A solid steel door, biometric lock, retinal scan. I pulled out a small device, a network bridge, the same model I'd used on the night of my first death, and pressed it against the lock. The device chirped. The lock clicked open. They really should update their firmware, I murmured. They're arrogant, Ghost said. Arrogant people cut corners. The server room was smaller than I'd expected. A single rack, black, humming with cold. No windows. No other exits. 3 technicians in gray jumpsuits, staring at screens full of code. They looked up when we entered. One reached for an alarm. Ghost shot him in the shoulder with a suppressed pistol. Not lethal, just disabling. The other 2 raised their hands. You don't have to die, I said. You just have to leave. They left. I stood in front of the server. It was beautiful in a terrible way. A cathedral of lies. Inside it were the blueprints for a dozen future catastrophes. A false flag in the South China Sea. A fabricated atrocity in the Sahel. A manufactured famine in a country whose name I'd been ordered not to remember. I could have copied the data. I could have taken it back to my handlers, let them pick through the wreckage, build cases and indictments and all the slow machinery of justice. But that would take years. And in those years, the labyrinth would rebuild. They'd learn from every death. They'd grow stronger, smarter, more careful. No, this wasn't a time for justice. This was a time for surgery. I pulled a thermite grenade from my vest. The same model I'd been issued on the night of my first death 847 days ago. I'd kept it as a souvenir, a reminder of the plan I'd almost followed. You sure? Ghost asked. No, I said, but I'm tired of being sure. I pulled a pin. I set the grenade on top of the server. The thermite ignited with a hiss, a white-hot flower blooming in the dark. The server's casing melted. The hard drive slacked. The data, the lies, the plans, the carefully constructed alternate realities turned to vapor. And somewhere in a dozen command centers across the world, alarms began to blare. But the alarms were too late. The damage was done. We went back the way we came, through the corridor, past the disabled guards, into the steam and heat of the vent shaft. Ghost went first, then me. The thermite grenade had triggered a fire suppression system. Foam was beginning to fill the server room. It would flood the entire facility within an hour. The labyrinth's brain was dead. The body wouldn't last much longer. We emerged into the forest as the sun rose over the Carpathians, red and gold like a wound. Faraday was waiting in the van. He didn't say anything. He just opened the back door and Ghost and I climbed inside and we drove. For a long time, no one spoke. The van smelled of coffee and old sweat. Faraday's hands were steady on the wheel. Ghost was cleaning her pistol methodically the way she did when she was processing something too big for words. I pulled out my phone. The screen was cracked. The battery was at 4%. I had one call left. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring. Hello. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. 847 days of lies, and I couldn't find a single truth to start with. Mom, I finally said. It's me. Silence. Then, a sound I'd never heard before. A sob, raw and broken, torn from somewhere deep. Elena. Her voice was a whisper. They said you were dead. They said there was a funeral. I buried an empty coffin, baby. I buried air. I know, I said. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I'm not dead. I was never dead. I just had to be. For a while. A while, she repeated. 2 years. 2 years, Elena. I know. Are you coming home? I looked at Ghost. At Faraday. At the road unspooling ahead, leading to a border, a plane, a life I no longer recognized. Yes, I said, but not yet. I have one more thing to do. What thing? I thought about the labyrinth, about the network that was already splintering, its operators scrambling to salvage what they could from the wreckage, about the men and women who'd built it, who were even now spinning new lies to cover their tracks. They thought I was dead, all 37 of me, every identity I'd ever worn, every grave I'd ever filled, every obituary I'd ever written. They thought the ghost had finally been laid to rest. They were wrong. I have to die one more time, I said. And this time I have to stay dead. Not because I'm a soldier, not because of the mission, but because the only way to beat a network of lies is to become something they can't categorize, something they can't predict, something they can't kill. And what's that? My mother asked. I smiled. It was the first real smile I'd felt in 847 days. A person, I said. Just a person. Coming home. The van crested a hill. Below us, the border. Beyond it, a world that didn't know how close it had come to breaking. And somewhere out there, in the tangled wreckage of the labyrinth's dead network, a single file remained. A file I'd planted before I pulled the pin. A file that contained the truth. Not all of it. Just enough. A list of names. The architects of the labyrinth. Their real names, their real faces, their real crimes. Waiting to be found. Waiting to be shared. Waiting for someone brave enough to resurrect the dead one last time. I wasn't that someone. Not anymore. I was Elena Marchetti, daughter of a hairdresser and a long-haul truck driver. I was a woman who died 37 times and survived. But there were others. Journalists, activists, ordinary people who'd had enough of being lied to. They would find the file. They would do the work. And the labyrinth, the real labyrinth, the one made of human hearts and human fears, would crumble. Not because of one soldier, but because truth, no matter how buried, has a way of clawing its way back to the surface. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Nice try, but we're still here. The labyrinth, I stared at the screen. Then, I typed a reply. So, am I? Vox, I turned off the phone. I leaned my head against the van window. The glass was cold. The sky was pink. And somewhere in a VFW hall in New Jersey, my mother was already ironing a dress to wear to the airport. I closed my eyes. The dead don't sleep. But the living dream. And I had so many dreams to catch up on.